In this episode of the Wild Party podcast, we're diving into one of the most urgent and overlooked challenges of our time, water. I'm joined by Riggs Eckelberry, the founder and CEO of OriginClear, a company on a mission to transform how businesses manage and treat their own water. From small to corporate businesses, OriginClear's solutions are helping them slash cost, save water, and fuel a new wave of sustainability. We talk about the rise of water on demand, how blockchain could shape the future of water payments, and why empowering businesses to treat their own water could solve major infrastructure problems. Get ready for a fascinating conversation about how smart technology and smart business models are changing the future of water for all of us. Let's get the party started. Welcome to the Wild Party podcast, where we celebrate the visionaries behind vegan, ethical, and sustainable business. In each episode, we'll dive deep into their journeys, uncovering the why behind their mission-driven business. I'm your host, Stephanie Lahart. Tune in with me for passionate discussions about overcoming challenges, innovative marketing strategies, and the power of using business as a force for good. So whether you're an entrepreneur seeking guidance or a conscious consumer wanting to support impactful brands, join us as we explore the stories behind the businesses that are changing the world for the better. Let's get the party started. And today I'd like to welcome to the show Riggs Eckelberry. Okay, now Rick has been a pioneer in the high-tech algae and water space for a long time, and he's actually at the forefront of solving our problem of accessibility to clean and affordable water. Now, here's the funny thing, Riggs, and I already told you this. We did give you an interview prep sheet of some questions we were going to go over in a totally conversational style, but I already told you, I know we're going to veer off from that because I don't understand fully what you do. But I know water is important. I have watched Waterworld. Okay, go. What are we doing wrong and how are you going to fix it?
Waterworld, that takes me back. Wow. It's really interesting what's going on in the world of water because a lot of people take it for granted. You know, open the faucet, water comes out, flush the toilet, water goes away, everything's fine. But in fact, we're in deep trouble. By 2029, literally, we'll be $500 billion behind every single year on what we should be spending centrally. Now, we know with the new administration, that's not going to happen. Even that amount of money, even if it were there, which it's not. What's the solution? The solution is do it yourself, right? Businesses right now are overcrowding the system by sending all their dirty water to the central utilities, which are really only designed to take care of people. So let's have the businesses do their own water treatment. And now these utility systems can breathe and can actually help regular people, residential users, right? And that's really our mission, is to help businesses doing their own water treatment. And it's becoming incredibly popular for a number of reasons, but it's a hell of a trend.
Yeah, and so let's be clear. When we're talking about businesses, we are not talking about your mom and pop down the street. We're talking about large corporations, right? That would have
we start quite small. Trailer parks, for example, microbreweries, everybody. In fact, we have found huge demand in smaller systems that are underserved. You know, Procter & Gamble and PepsiCo, they got it. They're good. They're doing it, but they have the resources. They throw money at it. A lot of people don't really like. Let's say that I've got a brewery, and it was not on my business plan to treat water. All I want to do is make beer, right? So for me, okay, there's reasons why I'm going to treat my own water, but I don't have a water guy. I don't have any expertise. So you call on us and we say, okay, fine. Here comes the pod. We drop it in place, plug it in. Don't worry about the maintenance. Your janitor can handle it. Not a problem. And so we've made the problem really, really simple. And as you know, small to medium businesses are the majority of business in America, right? It's not the large corporations carry a lot of weight, but in fact, if you can help the everyday business, that it's a mission of ours. It's what we do. So yes, we do deal with large, for example, power plants. But for us, a big contract's $5 million. Well, let me tell you that if you attack PepsiCo, that'll be $120 million. So that's just not our range.
Gotcha. Like I said in the beginning, you're going to be teaching me a lot because, you hit it on the head. We are just trained to think, you open the faucet, your water comes, and then that's the end of it. But much like garbage, we just think thrown away, it's somebody else's problem. So take me back then, your journey with this company. What led you to really start addressing this idea that we need to start handling our water supply differently?
I was dragged into it kicking and screaming. Uh, so there's been several inflection points. The first one was that I was a very happy dot-com guy. I was in tech, software, a lot of disruption. One liquidity event was like 4 months after I joined the company. I was like, woohoo, right? So that was the time pre 2000 and just after 2000. Great. At the same time, I was sort of building my creds to become a CEO. And when I was finally, at that level of the ladder, the people I spoke to said, "Oh, we'd love to have you as a CEO, but we're not going to do tech. We're going to do green." At the time, 2007, green was like woohoo. And so all of a sudden, I found myself um, launching a disruptive play interestingly enough, in algae for biofuels. You know that all the fuel in the world did not come from dinosaurs. It came from giant seas of algae that then decomposed. So doing that today is a very viable way of making fuel. Um, so we had a great time. I was interviewed on Fox. Stuart Varney called me algae. I'll call you algae man. All this fun stuff. But the problem was it depended on very high price of crude oil, like $120 plus. Then came fracking, and all of a sudden, we had a public company with investors and a technology, and algae became a science experiment. So we said, okay, well, what can we do with this? This is we had a technology for separating the algae from the water. Well, we'll just separate sewage from water. That's what we'll do. So I went, okay, great. We'll jump into the water industry and we're going to commercialize this technology. Little did I know that the water industry is immune to change. It's not, it does not like disruption. Everything's fine. We're good. We're good. Just go away. So we had a big learning curve. For one thing, they don't want new technology, but they got just fine. And for another, it's highly centralized, as I said, dominated by big water. So you have, us, the little guy, trying to like, well, where do we move the needle? And we eventually found that there's this movement that was been growing since the teens. We really became aware of it in 2015 of more and more private water treatment by businesses. Now, industry and agriculture represents 90% of all water demand. When I was in California, they kept telling us to take short showers, but we were only 10% of the problem. So, okay, short showers, you're not really changing much. But if you help industry or agriculture do a better job, you're making a big difference. So what we learned was that there was this trend, and I became sort of the Johnny Appleseed of DIY water for businesses. And it kind of took us a long time. We had to suffer through a lot of indifference and slow take up. But over time, they often say that if you want to do a startup, be early, right? And you'll find yourself like shouting in an empty hallway, but that's where you got to start. And then just so that when it starts to ramp up, you're there. And that's what happened to us. And the final piece of it was, hey, guess what? No, people don't necessarily have the capital. Maybe we can help them with capital. That's an idea that came up during COVID. There's a whole separate story about that. There's a lot of fun, not so fun COVID stories. But at the end of the day, what happened was we had a great technology for drop in place water treatment that had been miniaturized down with patents and all that. And then people wanted it. And this year, it just literally that division increased 7x year over year. Just blew up, completely blew up. Now everybody wants it. They were at a conference last week and they were just mobbed. Like, guys, did you get any photos? Photos, photos. We couldn't take any photos. We had no time. I'm like, well, that's good news. Bad for me, good for them. So the long story is that there's reasons why a business would treat its own water, so they win. And it also deals with the terrible problem we have with water quality in America without requiring $1 trillion desalination plants and all that crazy stuff.
Yeah, we do have water coming out of the tap whenever we want it. We are a very, lucky country at that. I've traveled
Yes.
the world. I understand what a luxury that is. But I have to tell you, living in LA, my water is not that tasty coming out. I have my own, on tap filter that I use.
Sure.
And then, of course, we can see the proliferation of the bottled water industry and what that has meant to, the ecological disaster our world is becoming. Because in a lot of ways, our water system is there, but it's not great. And how do we combat that? So, explain to me how this water technology works. When you're saying a business is able to capture their own water and purify it and use it, what does that look like? And then what do they do with that water? Do they reuse it or does it go back into the system? Like, how does that all work?
Well, we primarily work, Stephanie, with dirty water. In other words, the cities do a pretty good job of supplying fresh water. Now, as you say, it's got too much chlorine and it's got this and that. True. But our focus is on the really hard work, which is all that industrial toxic wastewater, which, if it's not handled right, ends up back in the system. You've been hearing about forever chemicals. Well, here's what's been happening. There's been class action lawyers suing polluters who thought that when they sent it to the city, they were fine. No,
Mhm.
no, no. The city didn't do a good job and the water was still dirty. And then the forever chemicals got back in the system and you created this sort of vicious cycle. So what these polluters are saying is, well, if we're going to be sued, we might as well do it ourselves, right? We might as well just take responsibility because at least we know what we're doing. Here's the other reason why. If I treat my own water, I can reuse my own water, which lowers the cost of water.
Mhm.
It's also beneficial, right? We have in America a terrible problem with recycling of water, which is less than 1%. Just to give you an idea, Israel is at 80 plus percent. Place like Vegas does a pretty good job, but they're still only in the low 20s, right? So it's a big challenge. Well, if everybody's doing their own water treatment, they automatically, because it's free, they already have it, they cleaned it, they can use it again for washing down equipment, irrigation, and so forth. The second big reason why is that the utilities, because as I was explaining, they have a big budget problem, they've been raising rates like crazy. Do you know that water and sewage rates are inflating faster than college tuition and healthcare?
I believe it because I know the rates just here in Santa Monica are astronomical because I have friends that are homeowners down there. I
Yeah.
can't believe what they pay for water and sewage.
It's terrible. And it's happening all over the country, even in places. I'm in Clearwater, Florida, and my wife has a small school, and what we pay for water and sewage is like, excuse me, um, so businesses go, great. I got my own little plant, so I got the cost of replacement pumps, but I get out of that hyperinflation spiral. I can reuse water, and the third big reason was I'm out of the clutches of the municipal bureaucracy. Like, hey, as long as I'm, permit within permit, and as long as I'm, meet the requirements, you can leave me alone. And a lot of businesses feel that way.
That's amazing. And so you said you were able to take this technology, which started as very large, and essentially convert it into this mobile pod that can be placed almost anywhere. So
Yes.
how does that look like? Because you mentioned a brewery earlier. What would that look like if I had my own brewery, which
Mhm.
would be funny because I don't drink? Oh, this will be good actually. If I started my own beer line, non-alcoholic,
There you go.
called I don't know, Stephanie Sips. What would this look like to me if I had one of these OriginClear water filtration systems? How would it help me in my Stephanie Sips business, which I'm totally launching now?
The designated brewery. Anyway, so, well, it's containers. They look like 10, 20, 40-foot containers, right? So it can fit in a 200 square foot corner of your brewery, for example. It's a little, container that comes in on a semi truck, gets dropped in and plugged in. So very, very simple. If people go to Origin Clear's YouTube site, We have some actual case studies and so forth. And you can see, for example, there's a housing development way, way north. There's a giant, this is just one of the many examples, but there's a giant real estate boom north of Dallas, between Dallas and the Oklahoma border. There's just taken off. And it's gone way beyond the utilities. This is no sewage. So on the shores of Lake Denison, there's a housing development that is probably 25 miles from the closest sewage connection. They have their own. And it's a little 40-foot container, behind the bushes. And once a year, a truck comes around and pumps out the sludge tank, and that's the end of that.
That's amazing. And it makes it sound so simple the way you describe it to the point where you're like, why aren't we already doing this? Why is this such a big problem, right?
Well, we are hitting the tornado, right? So think about an inverted triangle where at the very bottom tip are the people who have to do it. Why? Because they're going to be shut down. A lot of trailer parks get shut down because they have bad sanitation, or they're going to be fined like crazy. So these are people like come to us like, we need it now. Now we're starting to move up the widening triangle, where these are people who do it for business advantage. Wow, I can actually put a real estate development and save $25 million or whatever in sewage connections. I just don't have to deal with it. And so it changes the complete financial profile, and people can locate anywhere. For example, we helped a dealership in Pennsylvania locate in very cheap acreage. They had to expand, and they found very cheap acreage, and we made them completely independent of the sewage. So there's a lot of opportunities. The other thing is when people expand out, there's a lot of internal migration going on in the United States, as you know. Started with COVID, but even before that, people started moving away because of virtual work.
Mhm.
Well, you move into a place in Appalachia somewhere, the water system's just not up to it. Forget it. So you have your own, and it's fine. And it doesn't burden the local system. So there's a lot of reasons why people are doing it. So what we did is we created this business. That's what we do at OriginClear, and it's actually turning into a lot of fun. I'm watching, and of course helping as much as possible, because the guys who are running the divisions of this water on demand company are just completely slammed. Too much business, too much going on. One division alone's got over $40 million in pipeline, and last year they only did $2 million. I mean, this is a tiny unit that is all of a sudden just exploding. As you know, that's one of the biggest challenges of all, is how to survive expansion, right?
Right. And cost is an issue for a lot of businesses too. And I read that you have some kind of pay per by the gallon model. What does that look like? Explain that to me.
Well, okay, so that's coming. What we're doing right now is, building the where they pay for it, and then we're building a financing system for that. But where we're going is water as a service. Right now, businesses are accustomed to paying on the meter. So they know they are paying X amount per month because of their usage. Well, the meter becomes ours. That's all. So you don't pay any money up front. You just pay. We put our machine on site. It remains our machine. We maintain it. We take care of everything. And it's just as if it was the city, but it's us.
Hmm.
So we basically turned it around. And there's investors that love this because it's an asset that generates revenue, and people are very asset focused these days as investors.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, speaking of investing, I know that when we had talked a little while ago, initially, you had mentioned something about you also have an investment system built into this, or something about digital currency. So how does that all tie into it?
All right. So first of all, the way we raise money for this activity, um, people like you and me have a hard time getting good access to great investment deals. We're not Ashton Kutcher, who was in the second round of Airbnb and made out like a king. All the more power to him. Nothing wrong with that. But we don't have the access. So what we've learned to do is to get regular investors access to this early stage revolution in water, which is happening. And it's possible still. There's one unicorn in the space. It's starting to happen. And so we're a prime player, and we enable investors to come in. So that's number one. Number two, as we build this water as a service thing, we're going to find ourselves doing what Starlink does, which is using the blockchain to flow payments from all over the world, using a stable coin. And that, because once you grow, it just becomes horrible to deal with bank drafts and ACHs and territorial issues between countries and so forth. You just move on. So we will have we've trademarked it as dollar H2O is the stable coin, and we intend to make it simply when somebody invests in a slice of a water system, it'll be represented by a blockchain contract, which is great because if I want to transfer my blockchain contract to you, it's just a series of numbers, right? So I just transferred over. Boom. Now you have all the future revenues from my contract, or I could sell pieces of it, all that good stuff, and that creates eventually a water market. The biggest problem, I got so excited about crypto back in 2018. Oh Lord, and I had a big adventure in it, but we had a big problem with it, which is that the price of water is incredibly variable everywhere. America, all over the world. So you can't trade a commodity that has no established price. But by creating water as a service, now every gallon of water is paid for pretty standardly. And that enables eventually a water market.
That's so amazing. I mean, the way you explain it now, it's like I can see the need for it and I understand how it all ties together. And again, it becomes one of those things that it's like, if we don't address this now, what are the next 20 years going to look like? We don't know. So with that said, as people are listening to this show and maybe have read a little bit about OriginClear, there's quite a bit of still education that has to go into this, right?
Of course.
So how are you dealing with that on a marketing level to really make sure your message is clear and that people understand, first of all, the need, how you solve it, and then the benefit of it? Because again, you're up against a huge, already, what do you say? I guess an already held ideal and already held industries. And you're basically saying, hey, guess what? That doesn't work and we really need to change it. Like, how do you convince people water is a problem?
What I've learned, if you have to educate people, you don't have a market. So you go where the demand is and you find the people with the biggest pain point and you help them and you build your business that way. And if it's a growing market, people will hit that pain point and they go, gosh, I really need help. And there you are. So now, as far as investors go, that's something that we simply have to always get out the word, through wonderful podcasts, but also with, we have our own lives that we do currently once a month, used to be once a week. But, we have our lives, we get, we're starting to do a lot more work on Facebook and X, and we're just basically getting the word out. So it's a funny thing, Stephanie, but increasingly I'm like, why do I need mainstream media mentions? I was paying all this money for PR agencies and I just don't get it. They're like, we got you in Forbes. And so there we are in Forbes. It's the weirdest thing. It literally, mainstream media has become, I have a framed picture of a Newsweek article that I got. Nobody noticed. It's the weirdest thing. So it's really almost a word of mouth thing, right? This social media action.
Yeah, that is amazing. But the thing about mainstream media, sorry, the thing about mainstream media is it's so ingrained in us to be trained that this is authority based.
Yes,
So if you're not in Forbes, then who are you? And by the way, for people who don't know this, Forbes is pretty much entirely pay for play at this point.
I
So if you
know.
get an article in there, it's because you have paid for it. And Forbes, come at me if you want. We all know it's true, because I have people pitching me every day, which is fine. But when we're talking about like where do people receive their messages, you're right. It is on social media now. It certainly is on podcasting. We saw that in the last year, how it really
Sure.
got the message out to the people that they want it to. I
Yep.
certainly believe in it, which is why I started a podcast. But the other thing is, when we're having like these conversations that don't necessarily affect people's daily lives, it's hard for them to really care, right? Because we're talking on a business level. But if I don't own a business, I'm like, Riggs, why do I care about water filtration,
Hmm.
So for me, let me just ask you a question. With all this
Sure.
filtration stuff going on, I really see water is very aware, like is very what do I want to say? Um evident to me when I'm running marathons because before, when you were running a marathon, they would have water stations set up and it was bottled water, right? And there would be millions of bottles of water. And then over the years, now we've transferred into maybe they have jugs and they're filling up paper cups. And what I just saw when I just ran the LA Marathon is we have these gigantic water tanks that were at the side of the road that you were just refilling from. So, like, there wasn't as much waste. It was easier for them to refill it, which I loved. So what I'm
Yeah.
saying is when you can see something in your daily life like that, it makes more sense. So would something like Origin Clear be something like even the LA Marathon or the city of LA would want to, look into because they have these water needs, like almost a mobile water need that potentially you could help?
Yes. Unfortunately, we've learned that the centralized powers that be are very, as I mentioned earlier, are very fixed in their ways. We work with consulting engineers all over the country who are talking to the people with the problems. So this is and what we call manufacturers reps, and these are companies that have okay. I represent 5 product lines for different uses, and I know that modular water, which is one of our companies, is good for these pods. So when those needs come along, boop, they pass them along. So we're really what how it happens is it's almost like a enhanced word of mouth. For example, our chief engineer does a lot of lunch and learns to get people so that engineers, as part of that continuing education, get educated in our product line. So it's very stealth, and that actually is very effective. We have more business than we can handle currently, without having to go completely crazy. Now, I'm sure the day will come when I will have to go to a TED, but gosh, I haven't had an nobody's pitched me a TED for a long time. I don't even know if it's happening anymore. But nonetheless, at some point there'll be good, large scale opportunities like that. But in the meantime, we're just kind of filtering our way in, forgive the pun, into the market and finding the people with the need, and they go, I need that. And we've got it. We made them up, we do the deal, and we're rolling. So at the moment, I'm really happy with how it's going. I'm not troubled by the need to go big, as you say. That might change.
Well, let me tell you, when you get your TED Talk, I will be listening because I think you would be an excellent speaker. I know you have a lot of stories to share, and I think it would be very interesting. And with that said, you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. You really look into spaces that people don't always think about, but really need to be addressed and maybe fixed or made better. So my question to you personally, Riggs, is why do you like to tackle hard problems?
Wow. Well, I'm sure that my wife would like to know why my net worth isn't in the billions. And it's because I tend to go, that's really, really hard. Um, and, but it's just, um, I guess I get bored easily. I'm also infected with a desire to change conditions, to change the way things are. I could do an Amazon product line. Yeah, so what? I want to change conditions for people. It came early on in my career. I was in the nonprofit space, and I just have that mindset. So even though I am, you know, making great money and so forth, I wouldn't want to do it in a space that was just money for money. That's my feeling.
I am right there with you. I feel like if the work I'm doing doesn't somehow make the world a better place, I'm like, why am I doing that? Like you, I actually spent quite a few years in the nonprofit sector. I actually started a breast cancer foundation, which was the hardest thing I ever did. But when I look back, I'm like, I'm glad I did that because we helped so many women at the time. It just makes me feel good every time I think about it. So I always think to myself, if I do nothing else with my life, at least that portion of my life, I did really, really awesome things. And I have to say, Riggs, right now, I think you're doing a really, really awesome thing. And I want to personally thank you for it because you know what? Most people aren't thinking about this, but we need to think about it. And here you are already solving our water problem in ways that we didn't even know we needed to. So thank you. And with that said, for anyone who wants to get more information on OriginClear or on you or in the company, or maybe even attend maybe one of these, monthly meetings, where can they
Sure.
find you online? What's the website?
Sure. So they can go to originclear.com, and the monthly broadcast is called Legends of Water, where we invite great people, and it's very, very collegial. But in addition, they can find out more about potentially investing from the crowdfunding level all the way up to the high net worth level. Join our movement. You will find the Invest Now button if you go to OriginClear. So I look forward to discussing, jumping in and helping out. The water's great.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Riggs. I super appreciate it. And for anyone who wants more information on OriginClear or is still maybe unclear about how it works, please go check out the website. And I do love that you have that whole investor level, because I think, there's many people like us, Riggs, that really want to do good in the world. And maybe this is how they can start getting involved. So with that said, thank you so much for being on the show. I have learned so much.
Such a pleasure, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Wow Party Podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or professional who would like to be on this podcast, please visit boomtownmarketing.com and click on podcast. We believe that every business has the potential to change the world for good, and we want to support our community to help make the world more ethical, compassionate, and sustainable for all future generations to come. And if you're looking to build your business, no matter what level you're at now, request your free marketing consultation at boomtownmarketing.com and click Get Started.